All right, everybody, Stephen Key here. And once again, I have a very special guest. In fact, I have a guest today that I've known for a long, long time. Keith, when did we first meet? How long has it been? Inventor Keith. Okay, everybody.
Nice to meet everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Stephen.
Yeah, we've known each other. I bet it's over a decade at least, isn't it? Isn't it?
Oh, a
10
decade and a half. Yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's 15 plus years at least, maybe more.
Okay. And you
I even
you're
had
down.
your first book, the 3-ring notebook of your 10-step procedure. I mean, way back, but that's
God,
dating.
does it go back that long? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. What's really interesting, I'm glad everybody's watching, is that we want to talk a little bit about the process, Keith, and we want to talk about, because you're what I consider a professional inventor. You do this for a living. You've been up through highs and lows. You've been through all of it, and you've got a great lifestyle. Beautiful wife and child. You surf. You do all the great stuff everybody wants to do.
Yeah, when I have the time.
Okay,
I'm not-
but yeah, but you're a full-time inventor. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about it. Okay, first of all, you're in the pet industry. So
I'm actually in kind of 4 industries.
Okay.
I do toy industry. That's where I kind of got my start. And I was licensing products out of my dorm room into the toy industry. That was in college. Yeah, my last year, senior year in college, I got my first letter of intent. In my dorm room. That was a pretty cool. So I've been doing it a while. Yeah. And then so toy, pet industry, food and beverage,
Okay.
and then home and tools. So those are kind of the 4 areas that I am really active in.
Okay.
And within the last 10 years or so, or 12 years, I've been really focusing on the pet industry.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of products that are
Yeah,
licensed and running in the pet industry presently. Yeah.
yeah, because every time I turn on social media, it seems like you've got a new product that just launched, or you're celebrating it, or pointing out that, hey, here's a new ideas. I want to talk about those to get everybody excited real quick, because some of the ideas you're not going to show. Some things are very confidential. We're not going to go there. But what's the latest thing that you've licensed that's on the market? What can you share with us?
Yeah, so the latest, product line would be what we call Play Clean. So Play Clean, that's a line of what we call plush toys or squeaky toys for dogs. And what's really kind of fun and innovative about Play Clean is it has, let's see if we can do these line cards. Here's the actual inside of it. What we've done is we've got zeolite beads in a packet inside the toy, and the zeolite beads are infused with a geranium oil. So it's an all-natural oil that's infused on the inside of it that airs the geranium oil that actually kills viruses and bacteria. So it's a self-cleaning dog toy that basically deodorizes the toy, and then keeps, really kind of focuses on the clean home, which obviously is pretty important these days. So the entire kind of licensing asset package was the trademark, of the entire components around, this plush toy. And there's other products as well. We've got a...
Wait, you know what's really interesting about this? I saw there's a whole display of it, right? I mean, it's not just like one item. It's a whole line, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a whole end cap.
Okay.
The end cap launched in mid-January nationwide in Petco.
Okay.
And the includes all the plush toys. We have now soaps. We have wipes. We have other, shall we say, peripheral products that use the Play Clean brand.
Okay.
To kind of put together, as you're
Okay.
saying, a multiple product line based on providing clean toys and a clean home for you and your pets.
Okay, now you're pretty clever, because you're kind of a materials expert a little bit here too, because some of your products, it seems like you combine something that's functional, but it's always material too based a little bit. Where does that all come from?
Yeah, so I started getting into kind of material development with another pet product called Bionic. where I really kind of discovered that if you can design and or figure out, shall we say, a trade secret that
Okay.
nobody else can kind of understand, kind of similar to the fishbone product behind on your wall there. If you can figure out a technology that somebody finds valuable or that nobody else has done, then you can kind of morph that into how do you commercialize it. So, I mean, it's kind of like, well, Edison, like, okay, great. The thing, it has light. You turn it on, it does something. I can read. Okay, that's the technology, the formula. But now the question is, how do you commercialize that?
Okay.
How do you take that idea and turn it into a commercialization strategy or a product, that someone can use and use in amazing ways?
It's very interesting because sometimes a lot of people might come up with some type of innovation, but how do you turn it into a product? You seem to be very good at that. Also, you file trademarks too. This isn't the first time. Did you trademark the name? Because it seems like you've done that before. You kind of put a whole package together. Is that true?
Yeah, so I do many different ways on the trademarks, but yeah, I file a lot of trademarks myself, and it's very ironically very similar to the process that you teach for filing a provisional patent.
Okay.
It's actually easier to do. So there's this quote by Steve Jobs that if you have the name, you own the product.
Oh,
So,
okay.
that brand, you think of any big brand, sure, the product is wonderful, but
The brand.
our goal as inventors, and shall we say the holy grail, is to invent an evergreen brand. So,
And you've done that a few times.
well, I hope. I mean, I don't know if
You,
it's evergreen until a couple
well, you've got a
generations from
couple one.
now.
You've got one that we can't particularly talk about, but that to me
Yeah,
is
yeah, exactly. So owning an evergreen brand or having a
yeah.
property that will, continue for decades is
But
a really important and
But
exciting.
that's good marketing, though, Keith. How do you do that? How do you come up with a name like that? Seems like all the names that you have are clever. They describe the benefit in the name.
Yeah, I guess I spent a lot of time thinking about brand names.
Okay.
Very difficult to kind of come up with the right name that's also available. So now, I mean, not only do you have to have the brand name, you have to have all the social media handles. You have to have the Twitter handle, the Facebook handle, the Instagram handle, the TikTok handle. All the social components that go along with that brand. So not only are you delivering to licensee the brand trademark, which is you filed for, you also deliver sales channels as well. So it's the name plus, where it used to be, okay, back in whatever, the G.I. Joe brand name back in the 50s, or the Barbie brand name. I mean, think if you had the Barbie brand name right now, trademark, and the Barbie.com and Barbie Instagram and Barbie whatever.
Okay.
Those properties alone with the social media sales channels are very valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the industry as a whole, the pet industry. Do you have a dog? I mean, you must have dogs. Dogs, cats? Yes, no?
We had a cat, and unfortunately, the cat got taken by a fox recently, so that was not fun. Meow Meow was an awesome cat. It was a cat anyway, so that was sad. We are midsummer. We are in the process of bringing a new family member.
Okay.
So it's going to be a puppy, and we've got a couple breeds picked out. English cream, maybe a Vizsla.
Okay.
So it's time for my boy, as you know, it's time for a boy to have a dog. So he's gonna. We're
So
excited to do that.
talk about your creative process for just a minute, because I ask this question a lot and I never get a great answer with this, Keith. And maybe inventors don't want to tell me their trade secrets or whatever, but I say, how do you create? I mean, do you wake up every morning going, hey, I'm going to create something great? Do you do it every once in a while? Do you have a sketch pad? How do you do it?
Yeah, and it's not to be evasive or anything. It's a hard thing to describe.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of like describe chocolate. Like, okay, to try to create some chocolate, that's hard to describe. And people have asked me that before, and I don't want to compare myself or whatever, but I've heard that Beethoven, how did you learn to play piano at the age of 3 or 4 or whatever?
Okay.
And his response is that you just looked at the piano and you just saw it. You just see it. You can see a concert in front of you. And so that is one element of it. I just kind of see the vision of what this can be. And I'm sure a lot of it's like, pipe dreams. Oh my gosh, I just saw a levitating spoon. Wouldn't it be fun to eat Cheerios if it just remote controlling it, whatever. I mean, you can like see all sorts of crazy stuff, but with it would be a combination of what I call a raw idea, that flashes. And I normally have those raw ideas of, shall we say, a flash of when I'm really excited about something. Like if I'm in a brainstorming activity and everybody's like, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that. I mean, I had a friend over and we were, in the yard working on a yard toy, and the energy of having somebody to bounce ideas off of, that's really exciting for me. That's kind of like my, I don't know, my day drug, where I'm like, oh yeah, let's feel it. Give me some more. Let's keep going. I'm addicted to that energy of like bouncing ideas back, and things will come up, and like you have to have a sketch pad, handy. Like all of a sudden, like boom, 5 ideas will crank out in those sessions that you didn't have before. Other times, kind of when you're like that, just waking up or just going to bed, you're kind of relaxed and everybody's taken care of. You don't have any pressures of people wanting stuff from you, or that constant noise in your head of like, did I pay my bills? Or I got to do that. That stuff, you never have any ideas when you're thinking in those ways. So I guess allowing yourself or designing those portions of time in your day to just kind of make all the noise just go away. I mean, if that's sitting under a tree or going to a monk, or however you want to call it.
Do you do it every day? Do you create every day?
Not every day. I would say multiple times a week.
Okay.
Right? Where I'm thinking of an idea, just before I go to sleep, and I used to have a whiteboard right by my bedside.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird right now, but I mean, when a bachelor, like who cares, right? But yeah, I had a whiteboard, and I'd have to write it down before I went to sleep, just jot, just a circle or drawing, whatever, and then go to bed. And then the next morning, like, oh my gosh, I've got 5 cool ideas, that I didn't have the night before. And then, the last is, of course, the relationships with clients, the relationships with people who you work with. You'll be in meetings, or you'll be, talking with on the phone, and they'll be like, gosh, I've heard a retailer, they're really interested in blank. I've heard an industry, they're going in this direction of blank. And then when you get kind of those kind of seed, those little gold things, like, whoa, that's a shiny stone in the river. Let's pick that up, put that in my pocket, and think about it later about really kind of what they're talking about. So those are kind of, I guess, the 3, brainstorming with fun people that I like to be around and kind of generate that energy of like, yeah, this is fun. Let's go play in the sandbox together. That type of stuff. Kind of amorphous dream states, and then building good relationships with clients and licensees, where we share information in a way that you like, oh, that's there's something interesting in that direction, and then do a deep dive in the industry based on that direction.
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a minute. That relationship with
So I mean, for you and for the people watching, I hope I explain that correctly.
Oh no, you did a good job. Much better than anybody's ever explained that. Trust me. I want everybody to realize that I'm a big believer in relationships, and I'm a big believer that once you build a relationship, especially with a company that you're submitting a lot of ideas to, you've invested in them. They can tell, so they're going to invest in you a little bit. They start to talk to you. Maybe they give you that information on trends, or maybe what their wish list. How important is that? You just said that's how it sparks maybe one of those ideas.
Well, I mean, so it comes with existing product lines. Say, hey, let's change the product line this way. So with existing licenses that you're already running, it's incredibly valuable, because then you can take what you've already got, an existing licensing, a structural relationship, and then do additions, modifications, and or can keep going with it and build that sales funnel bigger for them. I mean, at the end, you're helping them make their market share larger, and sometimes you have concepts or directions that they may haven't thought of. So it helps both parties once you already have a structure in place. And then, yes, for new concepts and new ideas, it's also incredibly also valuable for both. If that relationship is at the level where everyone's, very comfortable with each other, and you kind of open source innovation, then if they say, hey, we're really interested in, nighttime, pet products, or we've heard nighttime, it seems to be a very something we want to look into, or that's kind of a growing category. And I don't know if that's true or not, but let's just say, nighttime, that's a category that somebody would say I'm interested in. Then, next time you meet, say, hey, here's some concepts for nighttime, dog products when people go walk with their dogs, at dusk. And I think this is something that makes a lot of sense.
So let's talk about that for a minute. They give you some input, you come back, you've got a relationship. Do you build a prototype for all of it, or do you say, hey, here's a sketch of an idea? What do you guys kind of think? Do you test it that way, or do you have to go file a PPA, build a prototype? I mean, how far do you have to go once you have a relationship?
So also a great question, and that also depends on the licensee. If the licensee, some licensees won't even look at products unless it does have a fully developed prototype. Okay. And I don't say safe is the word, but I don't feel that I'm providing the value to them that they would say, okay, you've spent enough time on this project that you know what you're talking about, that it's worth my time to talk with you.
Okay.
So that's where, because everyone's incredibly busy, and some companies, if you start just, hey, what about this sketch? What about this idea? What about that? They're like, yeah, that's really not for us. And I don't say it's insulting to them, but they want to know that you spent the time and invested the time, money, and effort to say, okay, this is legitimate to a certain point. What do you think?
Got it.
Then in other licensees, I've had them basically say in meetings, we want to know of the first idea that comes out of your head at the napkin sketch idea level. Like, if you have a napkin sketch, we want to see it. Because they want the cherries right when they're, right when they can pick them.
Huh.
And so, yeah, then like if you have something down on the napkin, scan it and send it to us.
All right.
Because we want to secure that property as soon as it rattles out of your head or through your invention process. So because they want the control of that property, and they know that truly that's their opportunity. It's kind of like real estate, right? They understand it in that perspective. Like if you're buying, back in my real estate days, we want to know the minute a landowner thinks of selling their property. Okay. Because we want to get to that landowner before he puts it out on the market, because we'll get it on the value.
That's very.
Yeah. So some people in IP understand it that way. Hey, we want to take down that property and put it in escrow before anybody else knows about it.
So they know you're shopping it because you're a pro. Okay. Yeah. Is there a special window? People always ask me, God, is there a better time to submit, or can I submit? Sometimes they tell you we'll look at an idea anytime, day or night, but that's not really true, is it? Is there a timing?
Yeah, I mean, each industry has their cycles as far as seasons. Okay. So as far as summer, spring, holiday, the retailers have their cycles. So everything goes off the retailer's buyer cycle. Okay. And so development and R&D goes in that cycle as well. I mean, I've kind of seen that everybody, just like Toy Fair, everyone starts up at the beginning of the year, everyone's through the holiday season, everyone's got the numbers of what, their company has done through fourth quarter, and they're ready for new items. So there's that spring seems to be the timing to show new items. Okay. Because if they take an item, then it'll take that full 9-month cycle to then be able to present to the trade right after they're finished selling their holiday. Okay. And through holiday, they're like, okay, what's next for the next year, calendar year? So that's the general rule of thumb, but I've seen it. I show products all year round. Okay. Because also showing products all year round, you're building a relationship as well. If you show up every spring, then you've, that kind of once every year.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. Yeah, you still need to be contact. Okay. Hey, I'm here. I'm available. Sure. I'll take your calls. Of course, I'll take your calls, but I'm available to help you build your business all year round. We're open here 24/7, 7 days a week. Call me. I'll get you back in under 5 minutes. So yeah.
Here's a question everybody asks too. You submit an idea to a company, and they're just not doing anything. Yeah, they're looking at it. A couple weeks go by, what do you do? Do you call them and bug them, or do you work on something else, or do you give them a nudge? When do you finally go, hey, I'm done. You've been looking at it too long. I'm going to shop it, or thank you, or what do you? How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, that's really a hard one, right? It's kind of like you're dating. You want to walk down the aisle with them and put on the ring, but no one wants to walk down the aisle. So what do you do? Yeah, super good question, and it's super frustrating to a point. That also depends on the licensee, the
Okay.
relationship, what you know about them. They could, there's things happening in those companies that will never know about. And like, they're being acquired, or they're looking to be acquired, or they're
Okay.
taking on new employees, or, a factory might have just gone, sideways in another country that they're like, okay, mission critical stuff to run our company. You're not that right now.
Okay.
You're not that. I mean, you have to understand that
All right.
you're not mission critical, right?
Okay.
We as inventors are not sure we're the guys that will make them larger going forward into the future.
All right.
But I mean, these, most people at most, corporate entities with the, shall we say, at the level that the licensor connects with, you're dealing with director, vice presidents, what have you. They have a put out fire list that would blow most people out of the water, and they've got to do that before coffee in the morning.
Okay.
So you have to give them a little bit of leeway that, to allow them to have the time for them in their day to take your call and review it and assemble the teams within their company. They can't make a decision on to go forward with your product just by them. They have to
So
check
what are
with
you saying?
marketing
Just be
sales.
patient? Is that what you?
Yeah, right. So for me, I'll just start another project and just keep going. I
Okay.
don't I
All
don't
right.
sit around and wait around. Again, it's a numbers game. So if you're sitting waiting for a licensee to give you an answer,
All right.
you're wasting your time. You need to just keep
Keep.
cranking and get the
Okay.
machine going on your own end. But yeah, at some point you need to give emails. So once every week, not that doesn't help. Once every 2 weeks. Once every 3 weeks is kind of like, hey, how's it
Okay.
going? Just touching base, kind of what's happening. Once every day, they won't return your call. They'll think you're nuts. So you have to give. So, but that
Uh,
also depends on what stage. So if you
okay.
sent them just a sell sheet, then it doesn't really have that much of an urgency behind it. But if you sent them, a prototype to an item and they asked for the prototype, then there's definitely some leeway to be more persistent with it. Like,
Okay.
hey, I have the prototype. You can always throw in, hey, I need to run my business too. Are you done with the prototype?
Okay.
Kind of the soft sell to let them know that you need to put food on the table as well,
Okay.
that you need to run your business and they need to respect that. And it's again, their relationship. So,
Okay. Let,
yeah.
okay. Let's talk about working on other stuff because you just showed me another product right there. So
Oh, this is
you
the same
you
one. This was the prototype of this. So
okay.
this
So
was like,
let's talk about that for just a minute. So you're not waiting by the phone. You're not
yep.
bugging them too much. You let them kind of do what you're thinking, but you're coming up with other ideas. Let's talk about this one here.
Yeah, so this one's in the market. I mean, the first prototypes, here's a prototype box, whatever. The first prototypes were kind of wonky. We didn't know what we were doing. Second samples, factory samples, and then obviously the finished product.
It looks
So,
pretty. It looks really close to your prototypes. Could you put them side by side? How close
oh
are
God,
they?
yeah, no. If I had the original prototypes, let's see if I have them.
Because they look pretty close.
No, this particular product, I had been developing for almost 8 years. So these
No, wait a minute.
prototypes.
Don't tell me that. 8 years.
Yeah, sorry guys, 8 years. Yeah, it's brutal. I think that the patent was approved before it got to
Why,
product. Before
why
it got
didn't
it.
you give up and just go ahead, forget it? Or did you set it down and pick it back up every once in a while and play with it?
No, I believed in it.
Okay.
I believed in the product. I believed that it was. I believe that it was cool. I mean, how cool is this? It's just fun, I
All
mean,
right.
it's a
Tell us how
fun.
it works. Tell us how it works.
Yeah, so it's called the Jolly Dipper, and you basically it's a mortar and pestle, and that's what the IP is based on. So originally it was supposed to be called the medicine ball. I thought the medicine ball would have been awesome, right? I'm like, oh, let's do the medicine ball, And I designed a line of calming pastes and agents that are out there, so a dog could calm themselves and play with at the same time. But that didn't really fit, and a lot of licensees, many people didn't have the calming functional in a treat in a paste format. We may do that, in the future, whatever. But that didn't work. The original prototype was multi-parts. There was 2 or 3 parts to make this work. One had an upper and a lower kind of baffle thing, and it was super confusing, and it didn't price out right. And it was only when I found a factory that could do this with a single injection mold. This is one piece, one part. And if you look at the undercuts, that's really hard to make.
Okay.
If you know anything about injection molding, this is super difficult. So you had to work through all those technology components too. The first concept, the first prototypes, too expensive, and you couldn't make it. We had to glue it together. Nobody likes to chew a toy that's got glue in it. So you have to grind through all those, over those hurdles. Let's see. So yeah. So then, and it went to a couple, potential licensees. They didn't really kind of fit. But as far as the tenacity, whatnot, to kind of keep it going, it's just.
Do you learn a little bit along the way? It sounds like a lot of inventors think that I've come up with this one idea, I'm going to show it, and that's going to get licensed. But there's a process here, right? It could get changed. Maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe it's not the right material. All these things kind of come into play. So you're inventing along the way too, right? Aren't you? Solving problems?
Yeah, solving problems. I mean, in the pet industry, it's incredibly price sensitive. For a toy, $15 is kind of your, kind of really your range. 10 to 15 is where you're at.
Okay.
So your product out of Asia has to be pretty affordable. So innovation is really difficult, and getting a product made in a way or a method that is low cost is just as valuable as the product itself. So, and that's been super challenging. I mean, I'll invent super complicated things, but at the end of the day, if it comes out that the cost of goods is higher than you can sell it, then it goes nowhere. And
great.
So you have to work through how you're going to make the product at an affordable price for it to hit the price point in retail that makes the pro forma work. So, I'll do another little, I guess, key to doing what I do is I try and figure out how to make it, and I put together a budget for the licensee of how to demonstrate how they're going to make money.
Oh. Okay.
So I'll say, okay, well, here's what it can cost in China. Here's what here's what the consumer will pay for it, and then I'll do all the accounting in between A and B and show them and say, here's how much money you're going to make on this. And does it fit in your...
How do you know about the cost, though, Keith? I mean, I'm an inventor here, and how do I know what that's going to cost? How do I figure that out?
You go to a factory and ask them. Yeah.
Okay.
Say, hey, how is this going to work? How are we going to price that?
Last question here, and we're going to do another video here because this is just too good stuff. You guys, you're listening to this, you're getting the real stuff. People usually don't share this, but he's sharing all of it today. Okay. Yeah. I'm afraid someone's going to steal my idea. I'm afraid if I go to a factory and show them, they could steal it. Yeah. How do you deal with that in terms of, I know you don't file, do you file a patent on everything you do, or how do you build trust? How do you know the companies you're working with? Is it kind of just being trustworthy, or how do you protect yourself?
So there's 2 ways to kind of look at this. If your product is successful, somebody is going to steal it. Plain and simple. Okay. It's just going to happen. If that wasn't the case, then I wouldn't have a Samsung phone. We'd all have an iPhone. If it makes a lot of money.
That's really great. I've never heard that analogy before. I'm going to use it. I'm going to steal it from you. I love it. Go ahead.
There you go. Stole. Yeah, but that's just it. If it wasn't getting stolen, we'd all be driving a Ford automobile.
Okay.
There's and that's just it. You're naive of thinking that your idea is, if it's good and it's amazing and it's going to change people and the way they do things, it's going to get stolen. I mean, back to the Wright brothers. I mean, when they invented the airplane, they filed their patents, they did everything right, they did what they were supposed to do, and they got, of course, knocked off because the idea was just too good. And I heard this story that it was either Wilbur or Orville that his health, it killed him. Yeah. Fighting his patents. His health got so bad, getting so angry and getting so pissed off that that he was getting knocked off in his amazing invention, that it put him in the grave. So yeah, no doubt.
So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? Do you file patents on everything that you do?
So anyways, mental health cue. Yeah, I do provisional patents. So I'll file my own provisional patents. Of course, the trademark component is now something of value that you can kind of lock up, provisional patents. And in some cases, I haven't done it, but I've heard people filing patents in China these days. It's actually pretty darn cheap. Yep. And you can then pursue, I mean, I don't know if it can be done, but I've heard that it's now easier to stop it at the source type of thing. Yeah. So that's one thing to kind of look into. But I'll file patents. Copyrights are a good thing. Okay. You can file a copyright very, very easy and very cheaply. So write up a description or the method of use of your product and copyright it, Okay. That's something of value. So copyright, trademark, and provisional patent, you can do those all on your own. And NDAs, if you can get them signed, but those are rare to get them done. That kind of helps. But those are stateside. With the Chinese factories, it's kind of, you have to build the relationships with them.
Okay.
And that takes years to do. It takes a long time to do.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes years to do.
How about just finding the right company to license to? How important is that?
Also, I mean, we kind of took back on this, on being afraid of showing your ideas. If you have one idea, it's going to be very hard to be a successful professional inventor and support your family and do what you need to do. You have to keep inventing ideas and keep the churn going. And through the aggregate, it's kind of like people did an assault Normandy with one guy. They put them all in there. And there's a lot of people, and just through the attrition of numbers, you're going to eventually get there to victory. So that's what it's a numbers game.
Got it.
And some are going to get taken out by people knocking off, and some of them will go through and hit the goal. So anyway, so back to the question.
No, I think you answered it. I think it's a combination of doing all the tools that are available, that are affordable, finding right companies that maybe have a track record of working with inventors, being a little, trustworthy. It's a numbers game. If you're really successful, you will be copied, right? That's how innovation kind of moves forward. Could be copied, infringed, workaround. I don't care what it is. I call it competition today. It's not easy. But Keith, I just want to thank you for all the information you provided, because you went through a lot of it. You went through how to create ideas. You went through some of the ideas that are on the market, how you protect it, how you come up with ideas, to just some of the basic stuff that everybody's asking. When do I get back to a company? All those little things that people are wondering. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and just one little footnote. I mean, on the 8 years to develop this, yes, that was 8 years. But I've had other items that I've licensed in 45 minutes. So it kind of depends on the licensee. It's all over the board as far as wow, boom, and oh my gosh, that took a long time.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'd hate to leave on a down note that it's going to take you 8 years to get a deal.
Yeah, 45 minutes. We did it. The guy, I literally have it's interesting. It was a sell sheet. It was a single sell sheet, just like how you taught. It was actually one of the first licenses I did. We saw the date stamp of when the FedEx delivered the sell sheet. He called and we had a term sheet in 45 minutes. It was awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Keith, thank you very much for coming on InventRightTV. We're going to do another video in just a minute. But everybody, Keith's the real deal. The real deal. It's not easy, but he's here and he's been through it. So, Keith, thank you so much.
I love doing it. I love working with you, Stephen, and everybody. Keep inventing. Keep the dream alive. It's a lot of fun and it's a lot of work. So just need to be prepared for both of those. All right. It's fun and work, but I love doing it. So what are you going to do?
All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to do another video. Stay tuned. This is Stephen Key and InventRightTV. Thank you very much.